All praise, glory, and honor is most certainly due to the Most High God, the patriarchs Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Peace to you in the name of Jesus. This is your brother Israel of the household of faith. And I count it truly a blessing each and every single time that I can come before the preach the word of God. Never though I count it as a light thing to do so. Coming on a little early this evening. And I just want to deal with very briefly on how to worship God. I know that sounds like a question that, is simple. It is simple, but people have, quite frankly, no idea how to do that. And they come up with all these ways. It's similar to how if you gonna be obedient to your parent, you have requirements of a parent, you have requirements of a job, and you have requirements in life. It's very clear oftentimes what you're supposed to do. But when it comes to how to worship God, people just come up with any and everything. Well, the Most High is very specific in how he wants you to worship him. Peace to you, brother Isaiah. Good to see you. Yeah, I know, brother. But I'm going to be quick, too. John, the 4th chapter, in verse 22. Because here the Messiah, Mashiach, he said something to the woman at the well about worship. This is John, the 4th chapter, in verse 22. Because the woman, he went spiritual. First he asked for water, and she said, hey, we had no dealing, you had no dealings with the Samaritans as far as being an Israelite. Then he took her spiritual, talking about living water. Then he told her about herself. She had a misunderstanding of who she was. She talking about our fathers worshipped in these mountains. Understand the Samaritans were placed in the land during the Assyrian captivity, where the 10 tribes were taken into captivity. Okay. They were imported there. Peace to you, sister. But now he says something in John 4 and verse 22. It says, ye worship, ye know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. So he had to tell the woman, peace, sister. He had to tell the woman, you don't even know what you're worshiping. And that's the truth today. Many people have no idea. They go to church every Sunday. They pick up a Bible or leave it in their car, in the back where the window is, to get all hot and covered with dust at the crib or wherever it's at. And they don't open it up to find out how to worship. You know that because they go to church and do all these things that are not written in the Bible. Number one, you're going on the wrong day. The Holy Convocation is on the 7th day. The Shabbat, or the day of rest, where you cease from your labor and you hold a Holy Convocation. That's on the 7th day of the week. You going on the 1st. That's just a prime example. All these things you're doing because you don't know, you can't worship God any kind of way. But he says, you worship me, you know not what. We know we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. Now we're going to hold our finger here and go to the epistle to the Romans, chapter 3, and find out what was given to the Jews or to the Israelites, the true Israelites, who are black people that have been scattered into slavery all over the world. This is Romans, the 3rd chapter, verse 1. Here, Paul, who was an Israelite, he says something about what was given to them. He says to the true Jews, he said, what advantage then hath the Jew, or what profit is there of circumcision? He said, so in other words, what's the benefit of being a Jew? He said, much chiefly in every way, because unto them were committed the oracles of God. See, the oracles of God, the law, statutes, commandments, Psalms 147, law, statutes, commandments, ordinances, judgments, that was all given to one people. He manifested himself unto one people. He did not do that for these other nations. So if you want to know what he wants you to do, you have to find out what he gave to Israel. That's what the Messiah is telling the woman. And here we read the same thing here in the 147th division of Psalms. In Psalms 147 and verse 19, it said, he showeth his word unto Jacob. Jacob's name was changed to Israel. So he says Jacob, he's talking about the nation of Israel. So in verse 19 of 147, the 147th division of Psalms, in verse 19, he says, he showeth his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. Okay, that's what he gave it to. Then he says something else in verse 20, he have not dealt so with any nation. And that's what's judgments, they have not known them, praise you the Lord. He didn't give it to all. He didn't give it to some nation in Asia. He didn't give it to the Romans. He didn't give it to these other people. He didn't go through Europe and find a nation to give it to, not Germany, not Switzerland, not the Netherlands, not Croatia, none of these places. So that's why he had to tell the woman. Again, he said, ye worship, you know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. That's why when they went throughout the world preaching the gospel, it wasn't like they came with something or asked them for something. They introduced what the Most High had given Israel unto these people. It started with Israel. That's because who he gave it to. Deuteronomy, the 4th chapter, and verse 1, pick it up at verse 5. Deuteronomy 4 and verse 5. It says, behold, I have taught you, this is Moses talking. He said, behold, I have taught you statutes and judgments, even as the Lord my God commanded me, that ye should do so in the land whither ye go to possess it. Now he's talking to the people of Israel. While they're in the wilderness, he's talking about what the Lord, he taught them what the Lord had given him. Okay, he was like the liaison. He was like the go-between between God and the people. So it said, keep therefore and do them. Do what? The statutes, the judgments, the commandments. He says, keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations. And we failed to do that. That's why we're in captivity right now, trying to figure it out. But he said, keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations, which shall hear all these statutes and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. For what nation is there so great who hath God so nigh or near unto them, as the Lord our God is in all things that we call upon him for? See, he was with that. He did that for Israel. He didn't do that for another nation. So if somebody of another nation wants to know the true living God, he has to come by this way. She has to come by this way. We're not going to them to find out because he didn't give it to them. But what's happened is that the people who he gave it to, they have gone and followed some other nations that didn't know the true and living God and have worshiped falsely. You cannot worship God any kind of way you choose. Everybody an authority has a standard by which they want you to do something. He established what he required of man in Torah. Verse 8, and what nation is there so great that has statutes and judgments so righteous as all this law which I set before you this day? None. No other nation. So back to John 4 and 22. He said, ye worship ye know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. Then he said something. He said, but the hour cometh and now is when the true worshiper shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father seeketh such to worship him. See, he says something. God is a spirit. God is not your mama, your daddy, your boss, just some man, not the police. It said God is a spirit. And they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. The question is, what is true? What is truth? Let's go back to Psalms 119. Psalms 119. And we're going to pick it up. We're going to read one verse here, verse 151. He says, thou art near, O Lord, and all thy commandments are true. That's what truth is, what he gave. Verse 142 says, thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. So again, that's what truth is. Back to John. Gospel according to John. This is the last place. Told you I was going to be quick. John 17 and verse 17. John 17 and verse 17. Here in this intercessory prayer prior to his passion, the Messiah says something talking about his that have followed him. He says, they are not, in verse 16, John 17 and 16, he said, they are not of the world, even as I am not of the world. Sanctify them or set them apart, which is what the law actually does. When you keep in the law, statutes, and commandments of God, you are being sanctified. He says, sanctify them through thy truth. And he says something, thy word is truth. So his word is truth. The law is truth. The commandment is truth. What he gave is the truth. And that's how you have to worship him, according to that. And even when you talk about the law, we understand the law is spiritual, but we are carnal. That's what we have to do. We have to worship him according to what is written. You cannot make it up. So when you go into church on the wrong day of the week and you engage in these traditions of men, matter of fact, let's go to one more place. Matthew, the 15th chapter. Because he says something. This is Matthew, the 15th chapter, and verse 1. It says, then came to Jesus scribes and Pharisees, which were Jerusalem, saying, why do thy disciples transgress the tradition of the elders? For they wash not their hands when they eat bread. See, these religious folks, scribes and Pharisees, they are concerned about some traditions of men. And although it might be hygienic to wash your hands, you can't find it written in Torah that it says, before you eat, wash your hands. So he asked them a question. He said, but he answered and said unto them, why do ye also transgress the commandment of God by your tradition? So you worried about some man's tradition, and you uphold a man's tradition, but at the same time, you breaking the law of God. He goes on to the commandment of God. He said, for God commanded, saying, honor thy father and thy mother, and he that curseth father or mother, let him die the death. That's one of the 10 commandments. He said, but ye say, whosoever shall say to his father or his mother, it is a gift by whatsoever thou mightest be profited by me. And I am not his father or mother, he shall be free. Thus have ye made the commandment of God of none effect by your tradition. Peace to you, Brother William. Good to see you there, brother. So what man has done is, in this case, in this particular example he gave, hey, the law is clear. The commandment is clear, honor thy father and thy mother, but you put condition on it, saying it's a gift. In other words, man, if I don't, it's something I'm doing like almost like charity. I don't want to do it. I don't have to do it. Thus have you made the commandment of God in none effect by your tradition. You nullify the word or in the law, the statutes, the commandments of God through your traditions, through the things that you've done, and you can't worship him in that way. And at the same time, you're talking about worshiping him, you've done away with what he told you to do. He called them something. He said, ye hypocrites. Well did Isaiah prophesy of you, saying, this people draw nigh to me with their mouth and honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. That's how people are today. They with their mouth, with their lips. They saying, I love God. I love the Lord. They singing songs to him. They dancing and sweating. They passing out, running through the church. Saying, well, they're at home right now in a lot of places, but those places that they are doing that, they say, hey, I just come to praise him. You keep talking about him, but you're not doing what he said to do. And he tells you what you're going to get for that. He said, but in vain they do worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. When you worship God according to traditions of men, it is in vain. In vain means for naught or for nothing. So you will not receive anything except the lake of fire. It won't be beneficial unto you to worship according to the traditions of men. You have to worship. God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. And with that, brothers and sisters, I want to remind you, we at the Household of Faith. We live stream right here on the Israel Teach YouTube channel every Sabbath, which is Saturday at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. We also live stream, all praise to the Most High, brother. We also live stream on our website, www.israelteach.org. We have Bible study every Friday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time on Zoom, zoom.us. And our personal meeting ID number is 602-961. Thank you, brother. We appreciate you. 602-961-1318. That's our personal meeting ID number. Again, 602-961-1318. In addition, if you've been edified through the ministry and would like to leave a donation, you can do so on our website, www.israelteach.org. That's one word, ISRAELTEACH.org. 100% of the proceeds go to the work of the ministry. Finally, there are available books available that I've written. You can find them on Amazon.com and Barnes & Nobles and other places where books are sold. Into Egypt Again with Ships, Pagan Origins of Christian Holidays, Killing Black Innocents, Hell Like War, Feet Like Burning Brass, For Then Shall Be Great Tribulation, and In Defense of Biblical Polygyny. All these books are available, again, on Barnes & Nobles, Amazon.com, and other places where books are sold. And with that, brothers and sisters, it's always my prayer. Peace to you, Brother Joshua. It's always my prayer that you will edify.